Hello. In part 3, we looked at the invention of the steam engine by Thomas Savery and the advances to the design made under Savery's patent by Thomas Newcomen. Newcomen's engine proved popular, but it was inefficient. The cylinder had to be heated and cooled with each single stroke. Large amounts of coal were required, and most of the steam generated was wasted. Once Savery's patent expired, others drew on the basic design, working on ways of improving the engine's performance. The most successful was Scottish engineer James Watt from a Greenock family. Watt spent some time working in his father's shipwright firm before, at the age of 21, training in mathematical instrument making for a year in London. He returned to his native Scotland intending to set up an instrument making business, but encountered opposition from the Glasgow Guild of Hammermen because he hadn't served a full 7-year apprenticeship. By chance, the University of Glasgow received a bequest of astronomical instruments that required attention, and James Watt was invited to set up a workshop on campus to carry out the necessary work. He discovered the university owned a model of a Newcomen engine which had been sent to London where it was awaiting repairs. Watt had it returned and restored it himself. In doing so, he came up with a solution to the machine's major drawback. By condensing steam in a separate chamber, the heat generated in the cylinder could be retained and no steam wasted. However, the cost of securing a patent, plus having the parts machined to sufficiently fine tolerances, posed problems. Watt needed a partner in order to turn his ideas into reality. Initially, he teamed up with John Roebuck, founder of Carron Ironworks in Falkirk, ultimately a success story, but struggling financially in their early years. Roebuck sold his interest in Watt's engine to Matthew Boulton of the Soho foundry in Birmingham, marking the start of a 25-year partnership between Boulton and Watt. The challenge of manufacturing a large cylinder with a tightly fitting piston was met by ironmaster John Wilkinson at his Bersham foundry near Wrexham. Wilkinson had invented a machine for boring a core from a solid iron casting in order to manufacture cannon, and was able to apply the technique to produce precision cylinders for Boulton and Watt. The first James Watt steam engine built by Matthew Boulton, known as the Parliament engine, was sold to the Carron Company in 1776. Another, installed at the Bloomfield Colliery at Tipton in the West Midlands, belonging to Bentley, Banner and Company in the same year, had a 50-inch bore and 7-foot stroke. Harris's Birmingham Gazette reported, "From the moment of its setting to work, it made about 14 or 15 strokes per minute and emptied the engine pit, 90 feet deep and 2/3 full of water, in less than an hour." William Murdoch, who at the age of 23 had walked to Birmingham from Scotland in search of a job with Boulton and Watt and ended up as a partner in the company, worked as an erector and maintainer of Boulton and Watt steam engines in Cornwall for more than a decade before returning to Birmingham. Murdoch was responsible for several innovations to the original engine design, including the introduction of sun and planet gearing, in which a crank and flywheel were added to convert reciprocating motion into rotary motion. James Watt patented this adaptation in 1781. Rotary motion enabled the engine to be used for winding and man-riding in mines, and had wider application in grinding, milling, weaving, and in supplying the blast of air for efficient coke smelting in furnaces. Murdoch is credited, among other things, with developing the oscillating cylinder steam engine, experimenting with steam locomotion, and the invention of gas lighting, for which he developed a method of producing and storing gas from coal. Murdoch installed gas lighting in his house in Cross Street, Redruth, while working in Cornwall, and after returning to Birmingham in 1798, replaced tallow and oil with gas in part of the Soho factory, and in 1802, as part of public celebration of the Peace of Amiens, used gas to illuminate the outside of the building. A statue of Boulton, Watt and Murdoch examining a plan of a steam engine known as the Golden Boys, or by some humorously as the Carpet Boys, stands in Birmingham's Centenary Square. Chemist and inventor Humphrey Davy said of James Watt, "Those who consider James Watt only as a great practical mechanic form a very erroneous idea of his character. He was equally distinguished as a natural philosopher and a chemist, and his inventions demonstrate his profound knowledge of those sciences, and that peculiar characteristic of genius, the union of them for practical application." Natural philosophy was the common term of the period for the study of physics and of nature generally. James Edward Lauder's 1855 painting, imagining the young James Watt at Glasgow University working on improvements to the Newcomen engine, is in the National Gallery of Scotland's collection. Matthew Boulton, James Watt and William Murdoch were all members of the Lunar Society, an informal group of prominent Midlands figures, manufacturers, professionals and gifted amateurs who met mainly in each other's homes for fellowship and to share ideas and experiments. The Lunar Society will be my subject next time. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.